The average American gardener spends over $200 on seeds, transplants, and supplies every single year. Over 20 years, that's nearly $5,000 spent on vegetables that live for one season and then die. But there's a category of vegetables that laughs at that math. You plant them once, they survive winter, they come back stronger every spring, and they keep producing for 15, 20, sometimes 30 years straight. I'm going to show you 7 of them, and February is the perfect month to get them in the ground before anyone else knows what hit them. Now, these aren't exotic plants you've never heard of. Some of them have been feeding families for generations. Others are hiding in plain sight at your local nursery, but almost nobody plants them because we've been trained to think vegetables are supposed to die every year. They're not. And once you understand how perennial vegetables work, you'll wonder why you ever bothered with the annual treadmill in the first place. Let's start with the one that pays for itself faster than any other plant in your garden. Number 1, asparagus. Now, before you roll your eyes and think everyone knows about asparagus, hear me out. Because there's a reason I'm putting this first, and it has nothing to do with how common it is. A single asparagus crown costs about $3. That's one plant. You stick it in the ground this February, and yes, you have to wait. 2 years of patience while the root system establishes itself. Most people give up during this phase. They dig it up, plant tomatoes, and wonder why perennial gardening didn't work. But if you leave it alone, something wild happens in year 3. That $3 plant starts producing, not just a few spears here and there. We're talking 20 to 25 spears per plant per season. At grocery store prices of $4 to $6 per pound, each plant produces roughly $15 to $20 worth of asparagus every single year. And here's where the math gets ridiculous. A well-maintained asparagus bed produces for 20 to 30 years. Some beds in Europe have been harvested continuously for over 100 years. Same plants, same roots, century after century. So that $3 investment, over 25 years, it returns somewhere between $375 and $500 per plant. Put in 20 crowns this February, and you're looking at a lifetime supply worth $7,500 to $10,000. The catch is February timing. Asparagus crowns need to go in the ground while they're still dormant. That means late winter before the soil warms up. You're planting them 6 to 8 inches deep in trenches, covering them gradually as they grow. If you wait until spring when garden centers are pushing tomato transplants, you've missed the window. One more thing. Buy 2-year-old crowns, not seeds. Seeds add another year to your wait time, and most people lose patience before they ever taste a single spear. The crowns cost a bit more, but they cut your timeline in half. But asparagus is just the beginning. This next plant is even easier, and it spreads so aggressively that you'll be giving it away to neighbors. Number 2, walking onions, also called Egyptian walking onions or tree onions. If you've never heard of these, you're about to discover your new favorite low-maintenance crop. Walking onions are the strangest looking allium you'll ever grow. Instead of flowering like a normal onion, they grow clusters of tiny bulbils at the top of their stalks. These little bulbs get heavy, the stalk bends over, and the bulbils plant themselves in the soil a few feet away from the mother plant. That's why they're called walking onions. They literally walk across your garden over time, reproducing themselves without any help from you. You can eat every single part of this plant. The underground bulbs taste like a sharp, garlicky onion. The green stalks work just like scallions or chives. And those top-setting bulbils? They're basically tiny shallots that you can pickle, roast, or plant to expand your patch. Here's what makes them perfect for February planting. Walking onions are cold hardy down to zone 3. That means they survive winters in Minnesota, Maine, Montana, places where most plants would freeze solid and die. They actually need a cold period to thrive. You plant the bulbils or divisions in late winter, and by the following spring, you've got a permanent onion supply. No buying onion sets every year, no worrying about bolting in hot weather, no replanting, ever. The only maintenance is occasional division every 3 to 4 years when the clumps get too thick. You dig up a chunk, replant it somewhere else, or give it to a friend, and the original patch keeps going. A single walking onion division costs maybe $5 online, and within 3 years, you'll have more onions than you know what to do with. They're the ultimate plant it and forget it allium. But if you want something that produces serious calories, not just flavor, this next vegetable is a true survival crop that almost nobody grows anymore. Number 3, sunchokes. Sometimes called Jerusalem artichokes, even though they have nothing to do with Jerusalem or artichokes. Sunchokes are native to North America. Indigenous peoples cultivated them for thousands of years before Europeans arrived. And then, somehow, we forgot about them almost completely. Here's what makes sunchokes special. They're one of the highest yielding root vegetables you can grow. A single plant produces 2 to 5 pounds of edible tubers per year. Plant 10 of them this February, and by fall, you're harvesting 20 to 50 pounds of food from plants that come back every single year without replanting. The tubers taste like a cross between a potato and a water chestnut, slightly sweet, nutty, with a crisp texture when raw and a creamy texture when roasted. You can slice them into salads, roast them with olive oil and rosemary, mash them like potatoes, or ferment them into pickles. Nutritionally, sunchokes are loaded with inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds your gut bacteria. They're also lower in carbs than potatoes, which makes them popular with people watching their blood sugar. Now, I have to give you a warning. Sunchokes are aggressive. Some people would say invasive. Once you plant them, they spread fast. Any tuber you miss during harvest will sprout into a new plant next spring. Within a few years, a small patch can take over an entire corner of your yard if you let it. But here's the thing, that's only a problem if you don't want free food. If you give them their own dedicated space, maybe along a fence line or in a contained raised bed, that aggressive spreading becomes a feature. You'll never run out. February is ideal for planting sunchokes because the tubers need a cold period to break dormancy. You plant them 4 to 6 inches deep, and they'll sit quietly underground until spring, then explode with growth once the soil warms up. By late summer, you'll have 8 to 10 foot tall stalks with beautiful yellow flowers. By fall, you're harvesting tubers. And unlike potatoes, you don't have to harvest all at once. Sunchokes store perfectly fine in the ground all winter. Just dig up what you need when you need it. The soil acts as a natural root cellar. Now, those first 3 plants are fairly well known in perennial gardening circles. But this next one is genuinely obscure, and it solves a problem that every gardener faces. Number 4, sorrel. Every spring, gardeners get impatient. They stare at empty beds, waiting for something, anything, to be ready for harvest. Lettuce takes weeks. Spinach bolts before you can blink. And you end up buying salad greens at the grocery store while your garden sits there doing nothing. Sorrel fixes that problem permanently. French sorrel is a perennial green that emerges in late winter and early spring, weeks before your lettuce or spinach even germinates. It's one of the first edible plants to wake up after winter, and it keeps producing leaves from early spring through late fall. The flavor is tart and lemony, almost like someone squeezed citrus into your salad. It works raw in salads, wilted into soups, blended into sauces, or cooked down into the classic French sorrel sauce that pairs perfectly with fish. Here's why February planting works so well. Sorrel seeds germinate in cool soil as low as 45 degrees. You can direct sow them outside while there's still frost on the ground. Or, even better, plant divisions from an established clump. Either way, by this time next year, you'll have a permanent supply of spring greens. A single sorrel plant forms a clump about 12 to 18 inches wide and lives for 5 to 7 years before it needs dividing. Plant 3 or 4 clumps along the edge of your garden, and you'll never buy spring mix at the grocery store again. The other beautiful thing about sorrel, it tolerates partial shade better than almost any other vegetable. Got a spot under a tree that's too shady for tomatoes? Sorrel will thrive there. North side of your house where nothing else grows? Sorrel doesn't care. One clump of French sorrel plants costs around $8 to $12 at specialty nurseries, or you can find divisions from other gardeners for free. It's one of the most shared perennial vegetables because established plants produce more divisions than anyone needs. But if you're looking for perennial greens with even more cold tolerance, this next plant survives conditions that would kill sorrel outright. Number 5, Good King Henry. This plant has one of the best names in gardening and a history that stretches back to medieval Europe. For centuries, it was a staple crop grown in kitchen gardens across England, Germany, and France. Then modern agriculture came along with its annual spinach and lettuce, and Good King Henry nearly disappeared. But it's making a comeback among permaculture gardeners, and for good reason. Good King Henry is cold hardy to zone 3, which means it survives winters in northern Minnesota and southern Canada without protection. It emerges early in spring, produces edible leaves from April through June, and then goes dormant in summer heat before putting out another flush of growth in fall. You can eat this plant 3 different ways. The young leaves work like spinach in salads or cooked dishes. The flower shoots, when they first emerge, can be cut and steamed like asparagus. And the seeds, if you let the plant go to flower, can be harvested and cooked like tiny quinoa. 1 plant, 3 different harvests, 0 replanting. The leaves have a rich, earthy flavor that's more substantial than spinach. Think of it as spinach's hardier, more resilient cousin. And because it's a perennial, the root system grows deeper and stronger every year, making the plant more drought tolerant and less dependent on your intervention. February is when you plant Good King Henry from seed or divisions. The seeds need cold stratification to germinate, which means they actually require a winter chill before they'll sprout. Planting them in late winter gives them exactly what they need. Fair warning, though, this plant is slow to establish. The first year, you'll get a small rosette of leaves. By year 2, it starts producing real harvests. By year 3, you've got a substantial clump that will feed you for the next decade. Patience is the price of admission. But once Good King Henry gets going, it requires almost 0 work. No pest problems, no disease issues, just harvest and enjoy. Now, everything so far has been about leaves and roots. But what about something you can use every single day in the kitchen without even thinking about it? Number 6, chives. I know what you're thinking. Chives are an herb, not a vegetable. And technically you're right, but I'm including them because chives solve the one problem every cook faces, running out of fresh allium flavor in the middle of winter. Most alliums are annuals. You plant garlic in fall, harvest in summer, and that's it until next year. Onions work the same way. Even green onions require replanting every season. Chives are different. They're cold, hardy perennials that survive winter underground and pop back up in early spring. But here's what makes them truly useful. Chives start growing when there's still snow on the ground. In Zone 5, I've harvested fresh chives in late February while ice was still melting off the raised beds. That means you get fresh allium flavor months before your garlic is ready, months before your onions have even sprouted. And unlike garlic or onions, you never harvest the whole plant. You just snip what you need with scissors and the chives keep growing. One clump can be harvested 4 to 5 times per season, and the clump gets bigger every year. The flowers are edible too. They're purple, mildly onion flavored, and gorgeous as a garnish. Plus, they attract pollinators like crazy, so your chive patch does double duty as a bee magnet for the rest of your garden. February is perfect for planting chive divisions. The dormant clumps establish quickly in cool soil and will be ready for light harvesting by late spring. By next year, they'll be fully productive. By year 3, you'll be dividing the clumps and giving chunks away to everyone you know. One chive plant at the nursery costs maybe $4. Within 2 years, you'll have enough to supply your kitchen for life. And unlike dried chives from the spice aisle, fresh chives have an intensity and brightness that transforms eggs, potatoes, soups, and cream cheese into something special. But we've saved the most interesting one for last. This final perennial vegetable is so unusual that 90% of gardeners have never even heard of it. Number 7, ramps, also called wild leeks. Ramps are the darling of high-end restaurants and the obsession of foragers across the eastern United States. Every spring, chefs pay $20 to $25 per pound for these garlicky, pungent wild onions. They appear on menus at places charging $50 per plate, and then within a few weeks, the season ends and they're gone. But here's what the restaurant menus don't tell you. You can grow ramps in your own backyard. Ramps are woodland perennials native to North America. They grow naturally under deciduous trees, emerging in early spring before the tree canopy leaves out. Then they go dormant by late spring and spend the rest of the year underground. This makes them perfect for shady spots that can't support other vegetables. That patch under your maple tree where grass won't even grow? That's prime ramp territory. The flavor is intense. Imagine garlic and onion had a baby, and that baby grew up in the forest. The leaves can be used fresh in pestos and salads. The bulbs can be pickled, sautéed, or roasted whole. The entire plant is edible, and a little goes a long way. Now, here's the catch. Ramps are slow, really slow. A ramp bulb takes 5 to 7 years to reach harvestable size from seed. That's not a typo. 5 to 7 years. This is why February planting is critical. Ramp seeds need 2 cycles of cold stratification to germinate. That means you plant them this February, they sit through next winter, and they finally germinate the following spring. Even then, you're looking at years before the bulbs are big enough to harvest. But here's the thing. Once established, a ramp patch will produce forever. They spread slowly through offsets and seeds, forming larger colonies over time. And because they grow in shade where nothing else will, they're not competing with your main garden. The smart move is to plant ramps now and forget about them for 5 years. Let them establish. Let the colony build. And by the time you're ready to harvest, you'll have a permanent supply of the most sought-after spring vegetable in North American cuisine. A bundle of ramp bulbs for planting costs $15 to $20 online. That investment will return hundreds of dollars worth of ramps over the next few decades, assuming you'd ever want to buy them at restaurant prices. So there they are, 7 perennial vegetables that flip the script on everything you've been taught about gardening. Asparagus that pays you back $500 per plant over its lifetime. Walking onions that reproduce themselves and spread across your garden. Sunchokes that yield 50 pounds of tubers from 10 plants. Sorrel that gives you spring greens weeks before anything else wakes up. Good King Henry that survives winters that would kill most plants. Chives that provide fresh allium flavor year-round, and ramps that turn your shady spots into a source of 25s per pound delicacy. Plant them this February while they're still dormant, while the soil is cool, while everyone else is still thumbing through seed catalogs dreaming about tomatoes. Because here's the reality. A year from now, you'll either have a garden full of perennial vegetables that take care of themselves, or you'll be doing the same thing you did last spring, buying seeds, tilling soil, babying transplants, and watching it all die when the first frost hits. The plants don't care which path you choose. They've been growing without human help for thousands of years. The only question is whether you're going to let them work for you. February is the window. The ground is cold. The plants are dormant. And the next 20 years of harvests are waiting.